In the early 1980s, Kings Island introduced a roller coaster unlike anything the world had seen. The Bat was bold, innovative, and unique. Its suspended design promised to redefine roller coasters by letting riders swing freely beneath the track. But what began as a groundbreaking idea quickly turned into one of the most infamous chapters in amusement park history. This is the story of the Bat, a ride that dared to dream big, faced unexpected challenges, and left behind a legacy that continues to inspire.
In the shadows of falling darkness, wings of the night creature await their silent signal from the moon. Darting madly through a starless sky, the frenzied flight of the Bat takes you by surprise and leaves you breathless, hanging in midair, captured alive by the Bat. Fly the Bat at Kings Island. It's a non-stop fright.
Opening its gates in 1972, Kings Island was conceived as a replacement for Cincinnati's Coney Island amusement park. Coney Island's location, on the banks of the Ohio River, was prone to flooding, and a move created the opportunity to design and build a modern ground-up destination. The headline attraction on opening day was the Racer, a wooden twin-track racing roller coaster designed by John C. Allen. The new ride's photogenic white track, often credited with igniting the roller coaster renaissance of the 1970s. The park was an instant success, welcoming its 1 millionth visitor as soon as 3 months after opening. Expansion was inevitable, and in 1977, Kings Island added Screaming Demon. Built by Arrow Development, this steel roller coaster embraced the new innovation of inversions, riders racing forwards and backwards through a vertical loop. To capitalise on this momentum, Kings Island would debut a new record-breaking attraction in 1979. The Beast would open as the world's tallest, fastest and longest wooden roller coaster. Riders were plunged into the dense forest that surrounded the park, with the coaster using the natural terrain to create a thrilling, relentless ride. Its mix of speed, tight turns and tunnels captivated thrill seekers and made the Beast an instant classic. Even during construction of the Beast, Kings Island was looking ahead, eager to push the envelope once again, this time with a ride that would redefine what a roller coaster could be. In reality, suspended roller coasters date back to the early 1900s. For years, engineers had toyed with the concept of cars that hung below the track, swinging freely to enhance the sensation of speed and flight. The towering Bisbee Spiral airship once graced the shores of Long Beach, California, while a single-passenger ride was located at England's Shipley Glen pleasure grounds. The first modern suspended roller coaster was Alpenflug. Constructed by aircraft manufacturer Messerschmitt, the ride featured a compact spiralling design suited to the German travelling fair circuit. Calculations for the ride were provided by Werner Stengel. However, Messerschmitt decided to omit bank turns in order to save money. Debuting at Munich Oktoberfest in 1975, Alpenflug was a hit. However, following the 16-day fair, faults were found in the ride. The unbanked turns had led to stress in the steel of the track and supports. The wheel assemblies also suffered from problems, possibly caused by the position of the brake fins under the cars themselves. Alpenflug would never open again, and both it and a clone under construction at the time would be scrapped. Manufacturer Arrow Development had a long history in the amusement industry, and were credited with many of the innovations that shaped modern roller coaster design. Their revolutionary tubular steel track had led to the thrilling bobsled ride through the icy peaks of Disneyland's Matterhorn, while Corkscrew at Knott's Berry Farm had taken the world by storm in 1975, when it became the first modern inverting roller coaster. Searching for the next big innovation, Arrow Development looked to suspended roller coaster designs to provide a new generation of thrills. This concept had never been fully realised in a major park, but Arrow saw an opportunity to lead the way. Looking to prove the concept, engineers at Arrow constructed multiple prototypes, starting with scale models to test the ride dynamics and progressing to a full-scale test section. This initial prototype was constructed with a lattice-style steel track design and operated with single 4-passenger trains. Cars were attached by an arm to a wheel assembly close to the track. A hinged connection allowed vehicles to swing left and right, with a twisting track design employed to accentuate this. The curves of this prototype were unbanked, leading to cars swinging towards the horizontal as they rounded corners. An initial model and subsequent test build even included a corkscrew as part of the layout. However, this was ultimately removed from the designs, as it was realised that the dynamics needed to safely traverse such an element couldn't easily be produced. In order to realise the idea, Arrow needed a large park willing to partner with them to install a full-scale, full-course operational version. Kings Island had already forged a strong relationship with Arrow Development. Arrow built many rides for the park's opening, as well as the popular Screaming Demon roller coaster. It was Arrow that approached Kings Island with the concept, their sales representative visiting to show artist renderings and plans. Park executives would travel to Arrow's Mountain View, California facility to view and ride the prototype suspended roller coaster. Impressed with the concept, they agreed to partner with the manufacturer to further develop the new ride type. This agreement allowed Arrow to build and test a full-scale version, with Kings Island supplying the land, financial support, as well as its team of accomplished engineering and coaster technicians. A 3-acre site was chosen for the new attraction. Situated between the Beast and the Racer, the roller coaster would be located in the old Coney Park area. Work on the ride would begin, starting with 18 months of design before construction would even commence. The proposed 2,500-foot layout would include 2 lift hills, as well as 4 40-foot diameter spirals. These so-called spirals were purposely designed to be unbanked, allowing cars to swing sideways to 90 degrees, accentuating the thrill for those on board. The top speed of the attraction was only planned to be 35 miles per hour, on par with family coaster Beastie. It would be its unpredictability, unique ride experience and swinging that would excite riders. Construction was underway when the park opened for the 1980 season, and immediately visitors were intrigued by what they saw. The track for the new ride seemed to be the wrong way up, and local press began clamouring for information about the unusual upside-down coaster. Kings Island remained tight-lipped, revealing very little, with General Manager William Price only teasing the upcoming addition, saying, "It's a totally new concept. There's nothing like it in the whole world." Additionally, a large billboard was installed close to the construction site, building anticipation. On 29th of October 1980, invited media would be gathered at the ride's already built station. Inside, a cast of spooky characters, including a human-sized bat, welcomed curious reporters. The coaster trains were proudly displayed, and a rendering of the attraction's layout could be seen. Fitting with Kings Island's other rides, the name of the new roller coaster would be revealed as the Bat. Kings Island's new Vice President and General Manager, F.R. Bush, would describe the upcoming addition as similar to a bat in flight. Bats soar through the air gracefully, swooping and circling and diving unexpectedly. That's exactly what the rider will experience. It will be an aerobatic sensation. The new coaster didn't come cheap. Even with the development partnership, the initial cost was $3.8 million. Construction was completed in November that year, and before testing even began, park engineers had concerns. Calculations determined that trains would run too fast, and when testing began, this proved to be correct. Trains had too much energy, coming into the second lift hill too fast, as well as aggressive swinging past design limitations. With an opening day set, a temporary solution was needed. Off-the-shelf automotive shock absorbers were tested. The number gradually increased to 8 on each car of the train. These appeared to neuter some of the unwanted motion, keeping the project on track. Alongside modifications, local press were being briefed that guests should expect the ride to be temperamental, and stressed the fact it was a prototype, a first of its kind and unique. Despite these early setbacks, anticipation was high, and the park was ready to showcase what it believed would be its crown jewel. The Bat officially opened to guests on April 26, 1981. This opening was accompanied by much fanfare. A media day had been held 4 days prior, and much like the Beast 2 years earlier, the new ride received international attention. Would-be riders could join the queue in the old Coney Park area. Lines were so long they often stretched back to the racer's entrance. Eventually guests would reach the station building, themed to a Victorian-era mansion. The red roof and white wooden walls welcomed guests as they approached the loading platform. Waiting for them would be one of 3 trains, each consisting of 7 cars. Orange track ran at ceiling height, and individual cars hung from a wheel assembly on the track above. Cars held 4 passengers sat in pairs, and riders were secured with over-the-shoulder restraints. The trains had been designed so individual cars resembled the wings of a bat, the front adorned by an elaborate bat head, sculpted by the Kings Island Art Department. Trains would be dispatched out of the station and immediately round a curve to the right. Engaging with the lift hill, an overhead chain would raise them to the maximum height of 100 foot. Dropping down slightly, trains would enter a twisting drop, spiralling downwards while those on board were treated to their first experience of the swinging cars. Straightening out and then entering a right-hand turn, riders began to feel the might of the bat's flight. An S-bend would initiate more of the coaster's legendary sway, before a helix had ride cars swinging almost horizontal. A left curve then delivered riders to the second lift hill, the train still full of energy, cars still in motion. Raising guests once more to 100 foot, the lift hill delivered trains to the second half of the ride. Another S-bend lined riders up with a left-hand spiralling drop. A number of curves followed, violently whipping trains and passengers within from side to side. It was at this time that riders felt the full force of the bat's motion. A helix followed before some final curves and the brakes. All of the corners on the bat were unbanked, causing trains to swing out as they negotiated the elements, snapping from side to side when changing direction. For many, this was unlike anything they'd ever experienced. Riders described it as exhilarating, chaotic, and even terrifying. The park stated, "The Bat reaffirms Kings Island as the leader in innovative thrill ride concepts." Its newest roller coaster looked to be a runaway success. Despite its earlier issues, the Bat would operate somewhat reliably during the spring. Maintenance teams were able to undertake remedial work during the closed weekdays, enabling the ride to draw in the crowds on a weekend. During those first few weeks, the Bat was suffering 30% downtime when compared to a park average of 5%. As the summer season and daily operation approached, the Bat would often open late, as adjustments were made to keep the coaster running. The violent swinging of the ride cars caused damage to the retrofitted shock absorbers, necessitating them to be replaced daily. By early summer, an additional set were added to each car as an attempt to mitigate this. Further problems were being encountered with the ride's lift hills. Chain dogs would not align or engage properly, resulting in them becoming broken, bent or snapped. Lift 2 became increasingly problematic, due to the high speed at which trains entered while still swinging. In an effort to remedy this, the Bat closed unexpectedly on July 24th. Engineers from Arrow modifying the chain dogs to better align and engage with the lift. The park also took the opportunity to repaint sections of the ride and train, where paint had either chipped or worn away. Reopening on 28th of July, Kings Island and Arrow would eventually staff the ride with a team of engineers all day, every day. The Bat still drew an enormous crowd, and the popularity of the new coaster had seen a 22% bump in attendance. But those wanting to ride often endured long waits. The coaster would close multiple times, with it sometimes announced the ride would not open for the rest of the day. Kings Island began issuing vouchers and coupons to disappointed guests, as well as posting signs showing the operating status around the park, at the main entrance, and even on a freeway sign along I-71. Major problems also manifested themselves in the Bat's braking system. The design of the roller coaster trains had placed the brake fins at the base of each car. Due to the swinging nature of the ride and higher than expected speeds, these would often misalign in the narrow channel below. This caused the fins to bend or even get lodged between the brakes themselves. The design also required the braking force to be transferred to the heavy wheel assemblies on the track above, causing mechanical stress on the connecting arms and joints. The Bat would once again close for an extended period on 20th of August. Kings Island told media representatives that, while some downtime is not unusual for a prototype ride of the Bat's nature, recently this downtime has accelerated to the point that it is unacceptable. The park seemingly pointing the blame at Arrow themselves, stating that no date for reopening will be set until the ride manufacturer can guarantee consistent operation. During this closure, Arrow engineers would work to address some of the roller coaster's many issues. Brake runs would be replaced and extended, as well as modifications made to the guide rails that helped to align trains. Reopening on Saturday, September 5th for Labor Day weekend, the Bat would continue its temperamental run for the remainder of the season. Against all odds, 1981 would see Kings Island reach a record attendance of 2.76 million visitors. With the closed season ahead, the park was eager to address all of the Bat's operating problems, returning for a successful 1982. The following year, the Bat was back, opening with the park on April 25th for Kings Island's 10th anniversary season. The full roller coaster had been overhauled. Parts on the trains had been replaced, including all shock absorbers and brake fins. In addition, new over-the-shoulder restraints had been fitted in an effort to increase rider comfort. The structure had been strengthened, spot welded and repainted, as well as having additional cables fitted to help with the strain on the helixes. The Bat would only operate for 4 weekends, before the failure of a weld caused the ride to be shut down on May 21st. This downtime would be extended to Memorial Day weekend, before the closure was stated to be indefinite. It was clear Kings Island were beginning to lose faith in the project, with park officials blaming the manufacturer during interviews, stating, "We're not sure if they can get it fixed." Subsequent investigations determined the lateral forces of the heavy trains were compromising the integrity of the structure. The unbanked turns were causing undue stress on the steel. As trains negotiated the circuit, they were trying to twist the track into a banked position. In order to provide additional thrills for park visitors, trains on one side of the racer would be run backwards. The wooden coaster's southern track would be home to this change. Reception was overwhelmingly positive, becoming a smash hit with guests and lasting well into the new millennium. The Bat would not open for the remainder of the 1982 season. The coaster sitting static at the back of the park, while an increasingly frustrated Kings Island negotiated with Arrow for a solution. Over the closed season, engineers would undertake further remedial work on the coaster. More powerful lift motors were installed, trains were shortened to 6 cars to reduce weight, more substantial supports were constructed, and welds were bolstered. These modifications sought to reduce the speed and swing of the trains, as well as strengthen the track structure. Operating in its usual downtime-filled fashion, the Bat would welcome riders for the first half of the 1983 season. A hairline crack in one of the wheels would briefly close the coaster, and more issues would be found. During a normal operating day in early August, the roller coaster was shut due to technical issues, with visitors informed it would remain closed for the remainder of the day. This would be the last time the Bat would ever operate with guests, the coaster never again opening to the public. At the time, Kings Island still hoped the Bat had a future. During the 1983 season, the ride could occasionally be seen testing, empty trains circling the track. For 1984, the decision was made not to operate the coaster. The park had opened King Cobra, their new stand-up coaster, that year, helping to distract from the troubles faced by the Bat. As time progressed, it became increasingly clear that rectifying the problems the Bat faced would require a complete rebuild of the track to introduce banking. This would be in addition to a significant redesign of the train, locating the braking system to the chassis close to the track. These modifications would come at significant cost to the park, and the difficult decision was made that the coaster needed to go. It was officially announced on November 6, 1984, that the Bat would be scrapped. Demolition of the ride would begin the same day, with removal costing Kings Island $70,000. The Bat would become the shortest-lived roller coaster in Kings Island history, only operating for portions of 3 seasons. In total, the troubled attraction would give a meagre 1.8 million rides. Arrow Huss would go on to refine the suspended coaster model, and even before the Bat's demolition in 1984, 2 updated versions had debuted. The first of these would be XLR-8 at Six Flags Astroworld, with Big Bad Wolf at Busch Gardens Williamsburg opening a month later. Correcting earlier mistakes, these new rides featured banked track, as well as brakes located above the trains. These design modifications would allow for reliable operations of future suspended roller coasters. The plot left vacant by the Bat would ultimately be filled by another Arrow creation. By the time of its demolition, the manufacturer had agreed to provide Kings Island with a replacement coaster. The station building, as well as some of the footers, would be used in the construction of this new ride. A looping coaster model was chosen, with Vortex opening in 1987 as the first roller coaster in the world to feature 6 inversions. Vortex would be positively received, helping the park top 3 million guests for the first time in its opening year. Kings Island would circle back to the suspended roller coaster in 1993. Constructed when the park was under Paramount ownership, the coaster would open as Top Gun and be themed to the 1986 film. The design now perfected, Top Gun would turn out to be the last of this type of ride ever to be constructed by Arrow. Renamed Flight Deck in 2008 due to a change in park ownership, the coaster would operate reliably. On the 33rd anniversary of the original BAT's opening, it was announced Flight Deck would be renamed to pay homage to its predecessor. Repainted in a new orange colour scheme, a roller coaster named the BAT would once again thrill Kings Island visitors. For roller coaster enthusiasts, the BAT remains a symbol of daring innovation. Though its design was flawed, it paved the way for the development of modern suspended and inverted roller coasters, inspiring successful attractions around the world. The BAT was a roller coaster ahead of its time, a bold experiment that soared briefly but left an enduring legacy. Though it flew for just 3 seasons, the BAT will always be remembered as a pivotal moment in the history of roller coasters and Kings Island itself.